Next up, Dr. Zales is going to share his 30-page presentation.
So you're going to take pages 1 through 3. We give
No,
you
we're going to
bad
get
time.
a little more information about our ballot issues coming up in April.
Well, from the
Plans.
perspective of the district improvements, and I've worked real hard to make sure, because there's only 2 people in the room that have never seen this. So, and it's become apparent too that, you know, the old adage in communications is you have to say things at least 20 times before people will actually start to absorb. So
You've done it.
Right.
You've done it.
I'm glad. I'm glad.
We're getting close.
Some of you are approaching 20. Some have heard this many times. And Paul, I'm glad that you're here from the Rolla Daily News, because when I read that 150, 160, I've always said up to 170, which 150 and 160 is up to 170. So I was reading RD's column, so I'll reiterate that since you've sat right next to me in some of these too. You know, to answer any questions we might have. But there have been questions asked of me during presentations I'd like to address, and some of the slides have been changed to address some of those further details. First off, the reconstruction or reconfiguration plan, I should say, reconfiguration plan that allows us to have early childhood. John Woodfin eloquently spoke to that. Here it is in print. The 9th grade will move to Rolla High School, so the classroom construction occurs at the high school with the 9th grade moving there. 7th grade moves to the junior high, and we start co-curricular programming or extracurricular programming, sports, and in this particular case. The 4th grade moves to the middle school, creating an upper elementary, like 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and it creates the capacity at the elementary schools or pre-K through 3rd grade. This all came about because of a lot of survey work that we did. And I'll show you that on the timeline here in a second. John also spoke about the number of students that we have at Rolla High School transitioning from the junior high school, climbing on a bus every day. And you've heard Mr. Liu, our student rep to the board, talk about his experiences as a freshman, and that's in the fine print at the top. This year we have 141. It's also important to note we have 24 8th graders that go over to the high school for advanced science classes as well. They'll be freshmen next year. And so we have an acceleration process, and we do certainly accommodate those students that show advanced proficiencies in our subject areas. And you see some of the courses that are offered here. There's 120 kids that are taking foreign language. We are one of the only outstate schools that offer 4 years of 4 foreign languages. Band, obviously, the acceleration in math and science. Dr. Welsh kind of talked about Project Lead the Way. We already have 25 freshmen signed up for the new biomed block of courses that was just presented. And that's 25% of the first-year biomed Project Lead the Way course offerings. So, you know, freshmen aren't what they used to be. I think we're one of only 8 school districts in the state of Missouri that do not have their freshmen at the high school. That's correct. One of 8. So, Paul, make sure you write that down. You've not heard that before. So we're oddly configured, and it's not just that freshmen have changed dramatically. And so it's an important academic move that we're making with the district reconfiguration, as well as co-curricular. These are the sports that are currently offered at the 8th grade level that we would propose to start with at the 7th grade. It's not an end-all, be-all list, but it's a start. Just like our early childhood program, it's a start. We have 975 students that participate in co-curricular programming, and some of those are duplicates, but without question I can tell you that 50% of our kids participate in extracurricular activities, co-curricular. And that's significant. It's a significant piece to our school district. It's important. We've had kids here visiting the Board of Education to receive rewards from the band to wrestlers. We'll soon have our boys basketball team here to you know, everything in between. So it's a significant part of what we do, and it'll also be addressed through this reconfiguration process. As you look at the timeline, you know, we're kind of in between the arrows now at the top, and in bold, August of 2017 would be our vision to open the doors to the new addition at the high school and start the process of early childhood and all the other things that I just mentioned. It's important as we go along the timeline, that arrow, yellow arrow is moved over, you know, each month. It's hard to believe we're already, you know, on the cusp of an election. We have done survey work with our internal staff to the far left. We've done survey work online. We've done survey work with Patron Insight that called the registered voters in the community. We've had a presentation from Patron Insight here. We knew from that survey that 70% of our survey's respondents were either strongly supported or supported the project, and 16% opposed. And so what we did after that was start to test the tax tolerance, and there everybody liked the projects that we presented, but we started to find out what level of support would we receive favorable votes in April, and that's why the process has been adjusted significantly since we first started talking about this several months ago and years ago, frankly. I would back up here too to tell you that our discussions about early childhood particularly started well before 2007, 2006-07 school year. We had committees that were functioning in our district that reported to the board after a year-long study of our facilities. Some of the ad hoc committees, their work was put together and distilled into some larger marching orders that the board ought to consider, and one of which was early childhood education. So while we've watched since 2006 and 2007, knowing that the population of our underserved early childhood folks has been at 50%, nothing's been done significantly to address that. So I was asked at a pastor's luncheon here this week about why now, and what's the significance of now. And I thought, well, that's an interesting question if you've not really been involved in any of those committees. We've had, that committee was almost 50 people in our strategic planning committee that had reported back to you in the spring of 14. That showed up 6 times on the strategic plan. So we've had 2 rather large community-based committees that worked over periods of months interacting with our district, and early childhood showed up again. So to walk away from the 50% that are underserved of our current population would be walking away from input that we've received from the community. I think it's our responsibility to listen to them, and it's my responsibility and should be held accountable, obviously to ensure that it's happening. So we're marching down this path. This is our current reality. April 14th is our kindergarten registration at Green Tree. And I invited the pastors of all our faith-based community and our leaders to come and watch kindergarten registration. You'll see 50% again. We screened and assessed and registered 273 of our 350 last year. There's 352 in seats today. There's 348 that we ended last year. 50% of them did not have pre-K as well. So we watched that number, and now it's time to do something about it. That was the decision that the board arrived at on January to place the issue on the ballot. So the private sector, preschool, daycare on the right-hand side of this circle in yellow represents that portion of our population. What's on the left will be up to 170, counting the early childhood special education population, which is in gray. ECSE stands for Early Childhood Special Education. They're currently at Wyman. You just added another teacher's aide tonight to that classroom because the population's growing, as Mr. Henshaw said, up maybe near 70, which will be the largest class we've ever had. And so we appreciate being able to address those needs. What's left to be served is there on the left, or in maroon, which we'll talk about. If we're successful on April 7th, then we would implement peer model, which is the second gray area. For every child that's in the early childhood special education program, you can add a normally developing child and receive state reimbursement, a reimbursement for the education of those children on a full basis a year after the program has been implemented. The reason why the gray areas are both of different sizes, we're talking about 4-year-olds right now. That's the number of 4-year-olds that are in the ECSE program, but we can calculate the number of peer model based on the total population of students, 3- and 4-year-old. So I was asked, well, when is it going to be? Why don't you address all children? All children should have access to pre-K programming, and I would agree with that. However, we don't have the capacity for that. We don't have the building space. We certainly have entered into this discussion with the pledge to work with the faith-based and private preschools. I pledged that on this week with them here at lunch. We've never entered into this to try to compete. But we've watched for 8 years nothing occur, and for 8 years we've watched that our population of underprepared kindergartners continues to present itself to us at April registration. So we could start peer model tomorrow, but we wouldn't have the space to do it. We would have to displace teachers in our current elementary schools in order to make it happen. What would be left to address in maroon would be those children that aren't anywhere in the district or anywhere right now in pre-K programs at all. It might be for socioeconomic reasons, might be because they have learning issues that don't qualify for early childhood special education. We really have no control about the kids. We have to accept the normally developing children in the peer model program, and the process for selecting those students would be no different than our current preschool and daycares operate. Some of them operate with a first come, first serve. There are daycares in town that have waiting lists, for example, or preschools. Some don't. Some have openings, but they still haven't addressed what's in maroon. And we think we can do that based on the relationship that our district has through Parents as First Teachers. We've been fortunate to continue to support that program absent of state appropriation for it in the past, because it's very vital to identifying high needs parents and kids. 124 last year, and we have a relationship with them from birth to 3. So we think that if we really look at how we redeploy those resources for parents as teachers and really look at a site-based parent educator for those buildings, and we have a relationship with them, feel confident that we can get to those children that are not being served. At the same time, offer more opportunities for our existing group. We can't do it all. If we tried to do it all for 350 in 4th grade and 350 in 3rd grade, or 3-year-olds, that's a building of 700 kids. We've already been told that a building of $15 to $18 million to construct, that's not in our scope. We're talking about a 25-cent levy that generates $972,000 and a construction budget of $8.1 million to move the freshmen. So that's not in our scope. Will it ever be, according to the department? I would answer the question about what we're expected to do is to meet the integrity of Top 10 by 20 by saying we will be expected to do something above and beyond what we currently do. That is offering programming that's above and beyond state reimbursement. Matter of fact, it was a part of the Top 10 by 20 tenants that got a little bit pushback from the Superintendent's Association specifically because it was an unfunded mandate. That you can't have accreditation standards based on a mandate that you're not funding. There are 2 bills in the House, Senate right now that deal with appropriations for early childhood only after the foundation formula is fully funded, and currently it's over $480 million underfunded. So when we'll get there, it'll probably be a while. It's taken us 8 years to get to the point where we're on the cusp of trying to do more for the 50% that we've identified being underserved. So hopefully we pledge to work with that group and continue to make that happen. As we've talked before, the building itself, which is part of the bond issue, $4 million generated through a zero debt service increase. We've entertained the notion of a nickel and a dime on the bond, but when you add that to the levy, we saw the level of projected approval to diminish significantly, so that's where we're at, and we will take that $4 million because of our capabilities out of the Capital Projects Fund, of the projected balance of $7.1 million, come up with a budget scope of maximum $8.1 million. During two work sessions, we took off the plate and off for consideration the auditorium for Rolla High School because the lowest amount that we could realize on that particular plan was $9.9 million for an unfinished auditorium with a gravel floor. So that was on the facilities plan generated in 2007 as well. It's one of the only 2 things that we have yet to accomplish, so it'll have to go on the next plan, and we'll have to figure out another way to do that. The actual budget amount here represents the spreadsheet for the operational levy, and it's difficult to see if you're back in the back. I want to back up a minute. We got a visitor here that's going to go to Hannibal and be an administrator and former teacher in our district, Kyle Gibbs, and I want to go back here. We have a new director of early learning at early childhood at Lutheran, and she came from Hannibal. And she was talking about the Hannibal School District 5 years ago, having the same discussions with their community about early childhood education. And her first reaction as a preschool director in Hannibal was, oh my gosh, they're going to come and close me down. I worried about the same thing that some people would worry about, have worried about here. And she said, you know, what happened to us is that the opposite was true, and we ended up with 9 more students than we had before. And she says, I'm sitting here listening to what's happening in Rolla, I'm thinking you're a little bit behind what we did in Hannibal, and we have that chart to show that. Mm-hmm. And secondly, the things that I think we can do on half-day relationships will be quite exciting for our preschool. And so in this, you know, we're talking a half-day program for 4-year-olds 4 days a week. And we have a relationship with several daycares and preschools in the area, and we've embedded transportation costs here because we travel a lot with our buses, and we would want to continue to do that for those faith-based daycares and preschools that we already travel to. So we've embedded in the budget an amount that will allow us to expand what we do with travel. Can I tell you exactly what bus number it'll be, who the bus driver will be, and where they'll go at what time of day? No, but I can tell you, as I told the group I just mentioned, that we pledge to be able to make sure parents aren't taking off work to come pick up their kids in the middle of the day. If they'll continue to work to try to find a program for the time that our kids are with us, ours will be education-based, then I think we'll work together quite well. It's happening in many other districts, and I can't imagine we can't figure it out here. So the project, back to the building scope itself, we've looked at, you know, what it'll take to build at the high school, $5.6 million in this one. This won't necessarily be what it looks like. It's just a concept to get you thinking about, you know, what the budget would help address in the building. It's well below the $8.1 million parameter that we just talked about, and this one saves the annex in the building. This is Cedar Street at the bottom and 10th Street on the left. The impact to a homeowner, as Mr. Woodfin talked about here, is illustrated. Sensitive to everyone that pays taxes. Money's money, and it's a lot for some, and respect that tremendously. It's been 14 years since we've done anything with our levy, and the business community has been very supportive of our school district, and we recognize that as well. So, you know, we want to be up front and talk, be very transparent about what our plans have been. Ballot language, legally written by bond attorneys, only allows us to do what the bond language says. So when the voters hit the poll, they'll see this in front of them, and that's all we're going to do with the money that's been entrusted to us. The other cost is embedded in the operation, phased in over 3 years, 10, 10, and 5, is there as part of the levy. I wanted to back up to the levy, or the levy actually supports this. You can see all the line items there, but you see in the boxes upper left and lower right 4 to 8 teachers, 4 to 8 teacher aides, and then down at the bottom the 785 to 1.1 million. So I think I may have lost my slide with the maybe. I lost my slide with the 972,000 in the levy. So I'll speak from memory because it's deeply ingrained in my head for sure. And by the way, I'll be back here too. Transportation, we received $336,000 out of the $1.5 million that we spend on transportation in reimbursement. So the community expects us to transport students. We take that very seriously. Transportation is a huge part of what we do, so the budget's being expanded for that. But I know that the existing folks that we cooperate with very much appreciate the fact that district does support their programs currently to that level. Mm-hmm. I think that's important for folks to know. All right. This particular slide, we've seen it before, and again, Mr. Woodfin referenced this comparison group. This is the Camdenton Salary Survey group, of which Hannibal you'll see in there, right?
Right in the middle.
About the middle.
$3.60.
Mr. Gibbs is going to a district that has a higher tax levy than Rolla, but good community on the Mississippi River, but we still. So anyway, Camdenton selects this sample group, and then we provide data to them on our teacher salary schedule. Salary schedule set up horizontally for degrees earned and vertically for years of experience. So if a person comes in with a master's degree in 15, they go to the master's degree column, and they go vertically down till they hit year 15. Camdenton randomly selects spaces on the salary schedule, and they do a comparison of all these school districts here, and then they push the information back out to us, and it helps us forecast what we're going to need to do when we set salaries and benefits for our staff. And we're fortunate that our community supports our teachers, and we pay well, and we're in #1 spot on 8 of the 10 categories that they randomly select. Well, we're out of first place in the beginning teacher column, first-year teacher out of college. Not far, but we are, and we don't have a doctoral column. So those are two areas that we don't. Every school in here, there's some large ones. You see the Ozark Conference schools with the, in parentheses out to the side. Every school that has a blue box next to it has early childhood programming like I just described. They have good relationships with their community, private and religious daycares and preschools. They offer more programming than what's reimbursed by the state of Missouri. So if the top 10 by 20 is realized by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and accreditation standards with distinction and performance are there, and it involves more early childhood, the blue boxes would attain that, and the green wouldn't. Green boxes mean that those districts do not have early childhood programming. So again, I think it indicates it's time. These are arranged by tax levy. If we raise our tax levy by 25 cents, we go up to 19 in this 28 school comparison. Schools below us, except for Neosho, either higher assessed value because of Lake of the Ozarks or federal impact aid such as Waynesville. Our tax levy history is important to note. We're going to probably be hit with reassessment in 2017, and reassessment's indicated here with a drastic drop from about, 2006, 7, working its way down. You see, when reassessment happens and the value of the things in the community goes up, the tax levy has to go down. It's part of the Hancock Amendment. The district cannot take additional money out of an approval of a levy and then reassessment too. It just doesn't happen. We can take in the amount of money that's generated by the increase that the voters will vote in, but it has to be offset when the value of the community increases. That's important to note. 14 years ago, that upswing in the levy occurred because of the voters approved a 3-year phase-in for salary and benefits for teachers, and then you can see what happened from there. So we're about 12 cents lower than we were in 1988 as a result. I was asked at one meeting about where we rank as a state, because the Camdenton survey is only a select group of schools. We didn't select it, but it still is a select group of schools. So if you push this out to 520 school districts in the state of Missouri, that means 86% of Missouri school districts have a higher tax levy than Rolla. The state average is $4.07. Also, the amount per pupil that's spent in this district, 2/3 of the districts in the state of Missouri spend more per pupil than Rolla does. But if you took this slide that I just we rank ordered the school districts in, you look at student performance, you look at the partnerships we have with S&T, the things that we're able to do, we're at the top, both in teacher salaries and the way that our kids perform. So what I'd like to say is we're not complaining. I think we have demonstrated that we are very fiscally responsible with the taxpayer dollars that are entrusted to us. We're proud of what we do with the resources that are entrusted to us. We've continued to move forward absence of state resources, and we'll continue to do so. There are many ways that you can find out information, as Mr. Woodfin pointed out, and we encourage people to do that. And we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
It's pretty amazing that last number you found about where we sit with all 520
That's the one
districts?
that just,
I just learned today from Mr. Henshaw that we were one of 8 schools that are configured the way we are with freshmen not being at the high school. I didn't know that till today, so I learned something today.
Learn something new.
Yeah.
Didn't get to put it in the slide, but to make it different.
it'll be
You have
in
to
the
put
next
another
version.
color box in that one slide.
Yeah, one
Not
thing,
colors.
you didn't mention that the other 2 schools that don't have additional preschool programs. Neosho and Joplin, don't both of them have a,
Well, we haven't been able to confirm. The way we did the poll, in that, the way we called back to say for sure, because usually they register their voter issues on a ballot, and we know that they're having elections, and we couldn't find that Neosho and Joplin did. So rather than say they do anymore, they say they have plans in place. Like us, I suppose that means, that eventually they'll Joplin's going through a complete reconfiguration anyway, been more focused on realignment of schools and opening a new high school this year and new career tech center, so they've got plenty of work still ahead of them. And talking with the superintendent of Joplin at our conference meetings, he said, I finally have turned, I used to do 100% disaster recovery for 2.5, almost 3 years, and now it's down to about 40%. Because we're still dealing with, all the audits and the
Right.
things that come out of all the resources that have been given to them to rebuild the district. So very little instructional focus, and mostly, that's a difficult job.
Mhm.
So early childhood will come out of that at some point in time, for sure. And Neosho, they're working on it. Dr. Dan Decker's the superintendent there, and he's been retweeting and favoriting all of our R31 1 and 2 tweets. I saw one last night. I said, I'll see him next week. And I thought, why is he doing that? So maybe he's, look what Raleigh's doing. We're going to try to do something too. So we'll see.
Great.
Thank you.
well,
Thank
thank
you.
you.